How you doing? Dan here. Today I wanted to talk to you about this stuff. If you can see that, that's porridge oats. Rolled porridge oats. Scottish porridge oats. Now, over many years, I've probably seen hundreds, if not, well, no, hundreds, let's say, of food diaries. And probably the most common healthy breakfast that I see is porridge. Hands up if you eat porridge. And if you love porridge and you eat porridge every day and it sets you up all day, perhaps. So I just wanted to give you some pros and cons to porridge, particularly a sort of perspective from weight loss or burning body fat, which most people want to do. So to begin with, I'm going to talk to you about all the good aspects of kind of porridge oats, and then I'm going to talk to you through the kind of not so good, and then you can decide whether you think porridge is a good breakfast choice or not. So number one, the reasons why porridge, and most people would eat porridge, is it's quick. It's basically nice and easy, and you can even put stuff in the microwave these days, even in a packet, and you just add stuff. And it's there, done, absolutely fine. On your day, off you go. I'd say that's a benefit. Most people, it needs to be nice and easy for breakfast, and more often than not, people don't eat breakfast because they haven't got time. Number two, it's a whole grain, which means it's basically in its natural state. It hasn't been, apart from being rolled by a machine, it's basically in its natural shape, form, hasn't been processed, heated, minced up. And anytime you process a grain, you take away any of the nourishment or nutrition that you can actually take on board yourself. So that's a good thing. Porridge has probably quite high levels of fibre. Now that's obviously multifaceted. It has lots of benefits, especially for digestion, transit time, making sure food goes from top to bottom with no problem. It also helps to bind to other fats and hormones and this type of thing to allow to make sure you haven't got too many circulatory fats in your body. So that's a good thing. Number four, medium sort of glycemic index. Glycemic index is basically a chart between 0 and 100, and it measures how quickly kind of sugars go into the bloodstream. Now, bear in mind, it's around about 50 or 60 when it's not cooked, which is obviously medium. But as soon as you start to heat something or cook something, you start to break down the sugars, and that changes the GI and rises it up. So for the longer you cook porridge, the higher the GI. So that's questionable whether or not it's too sugary and has detrimental effects on our sugar levels. So if you're sensitive to sugar, you may be cautious of porridge, but it's an okay kind of GI. And let's face it, most people like porridge, especially in the winter, because it's comforting, it's nice, and it's basically nice to eat. It has that kind of good feeling. I put on the bottom here post-exercise, because depending on not where you eat porridge, if you hold a sedentary lifestyle and you're trying to lose weight, then eating too many grains is just going to basically manifest in turning into body fat. The only time really you want to be eating grains and sort of starchy carbohydrates like this is either on the same day as you exercise intensely or after you've exercised. So it could be you've been to the gym and then you'd have porridge. That wouldn't be a bad choice of eating of grains. So it's not so much about what it is, it's when you eat the carbohydrate. So that's the good stuff. Now for the not so good stuff. Now typically when I'm trying to teach people how to kind of generic approach to eating and nutrition, and any meal, first thing we need to want to do is include 3 macronutrients for most people. So that's proteins, building blocks like meats, fish, nuts, and all those type of things, mainly meat and fish, legumes and pulses, carbohydrates, which could stem from plant foods, which is particularly what this is, it's a carbohydrate, and then fats and oils, which is anything from nuts, seeds, avocados, fish oils, omega-3s, butter, and saturated fats, all those type of things. So they want to have those three elements. Now, obviously, this is carbohydrate, and most people will add some kind of dairy or dairy alternative, like oats, like even oats milk, like almond milk, like coconut milk, or even water. And that doesn't contain a huge amount of protein and minimal good fats. So my issue with porridge is that it doesn't contain protein, and protein is super important, especially in the morning, to get our metabolism going. There's a thermic effect, which means you're actually hiking up your metabolism as soon as you eat protein. It stabilizes your blood sugars, protein, and it generally gives you the building blocks, the amino acids that you need to actually handle and repair the body. And unfortunately, this doesn't contain a huge amount of protein. It doesn't contain fats. So depending on what you're going to put with it, most people put skimmed milk or some kind of dairy alternative which doesn't contain good fats. And if they are, they're probably pretty processed, especially fats alternatives like soy, which is bad news. So doesn't contain fat, and fat's uber important in terms of synthesizing hormones to make you feel satisfied, to balance out your insulin levels so you're not having this kind of peaks and troughs. So unfortunately, porridge doesn't contain many fats, and in my book, that's not a great thing. What have we got? Number 3. It contains something similar to gluten, evenins, which is basically some people can be a little bit sensitive to. So it's not essentially gluten intolerant. So celiac, or if you're really sensitive to gluten, especially if this has been made in the same factory as wheat or other gluten type grains, it could have a problem for you. So you just need to be a little bit cautious of that. Sugar. Now, as I said, really what you're doing with the absence of proteins and fats in your porridge, you're gonna, and cooking your porridge too, you're gonna basically eating a lot of sugar. And that might be quite good sugar from starches, but effectively that's going to have an issue with your blood sugars. What goes up has got to come down, and generally when it comes down, people don't feel right, they don't concentrate right, they make poor food choices, they're irritable, they can't handle stresses. So you've got to be careful, especially if you're sensitive to sugar, that when you're eating it, you're paying attention to how you feel after eating it. Because when you've eaten it and you're off to work, you don't have time. But it could be that you don't feel great, your energy is low, and it could be just from what you've eaten. So sugar, not a great thing for porridge. As I've mentioned before, a lot of people have I've said in past posts, dairy in terms of milk can have very inflammatory problems. A lot of people are lactose intolerant, and if you're including that with dairy, that can cause inflammation in the body and leads to a heck of a lot of issues, but particularly digestive issues. Even the alternatives to milk are generally not that nutritious. So it's particularly if you're having cow's milk, it could be an issue for your gut and inflammatory issues. The last one on the neg side is the fact that most people that eat porridge have it every day. And variety is the spice of life. And ideally, we want to rotate our food choices, because the more we eat something, we're leaving our immune system more open to be a little bit cheesed off with it. So you're going to maybe open yourself to food intolerances, as particularly with the foods that you eat most of the time. So that includes porridge oats. So I'll leave it to you whether you think porridge is a good breakfast. Now I've given you some of the basic details. I'll let you argue about it. Those that love it and swear by it, I'm not going to convince you. But those that you're not really sure, I'm sure it's given you food for thought. So there we go. Leave some comments, share if you like. I hope that helps. Try and vary your food. And if I were you, I'd think about on what's on the left-hand side here. Have a great day. See you at boot camp.